So, this segment, we're going to be switching it up. Still staying in the NFL, but we're not going to do another one of these big segments. We're going to go to a little bit smaller, but still a fairly big topic in what happened in the broadcasting side of the NFL world. Tom Brady making his big debut on Fox Sports in the broadcasting chair. He was sitting in the color chair for shit. What's the play-by-play guy? Caleb, you knew his name.
Kevin Burkhardt.
There you go,
Kevin
Kevin
Burkhardt.
Burkhardt, who did a great job. I thought he called a great game. I actually really enjoyed his play-by-play. It's funny because this is I'm gonna start off by shitting on Tom Brady. I know I don't want to really because I've really come you'll find watching the segment I've come a little bit full circle, I think, on Tom Brady's debut. My opinion of it has kind of gone in a full loop. But I will start off by shitting on it by saying that I think he made Burkhardt sound really good. I think he made him sound like not to say that he's not, but I think the biggest sign of when a color guy doesn't know what he's doing is when the play-by-play guy is filling in and doing a stellar job at like jumping in the gaps and like all of that. And I think I he's Tom Brady sounded really awkward. He sounded super tense. He was I the comparison that I've been thinking about that for because a lot of people I think it was Bill Simmons, I think is his name. He has a podcast. He's a sports broadcaster, and the thing that he said that and it stuck with me because I think I like when I do broadcast in the future, I think I'm going to think about it like this because I think it's a good way to think about it. But it's you want to feel like you're sitting on the couch with the people calling the game and just talking about the game. Like it should be casual like that. Listening to Tom Brady call this game was like trying to watch a football game with like if you just started dating a girl and you're like just meeting the dad and you're trying to like talk about the football game with the dad. That's what I would compare this to. It was just rough. Like you could tell he knew what he was talking about, but like you you'd almost rather just not listen. You don't really want to be there. That's kind of how I felt about Tom Brady's debut. It was just a little awkward. I know Caleb, you didn't get to watch as much of it as I think I did, but what did you think of it? I haven't really gotten a chance to throw it over to you yet. So, what did you think?
Yeah, so I mean, because the Seahawks game was on at the same time, it's not like I caught the whole thing, but I think I read enough about it and watched enough kind of highlights from it and heard his color commentary from that game enough to kind of give my opinion on it. And I mean, it's just to be expected because
Yeah.
honestly, I don't even blame Brady whatsoever because this is kind of Fox's fault for putting him in this situation to begin with. Um, the point has been made. You look at the rest of the famous players that have gone into this. Most of them had at least some time to kind of work up to it, where they're in a booth in sort of a lesser booth. They're not the number one guy. They kind of have to learn on the job, or they go over their commentating. I think I'm gonna get corrected if I'm wrong, but I think it was Troy Aikman who was talking about commenting on games in NFL Europe to kind of hone his skills. That's stuff like that. Brady has not had the opportunity to do it, and as much like practice as he could have had in the last year, as many mock games as I'm sure he's done. Um, it doesn't compare to doing a real game
No.
live with that many people watching you, with the pressures of that, with also the pressure of replacing such a great color commentator in Greg Olson. So I think he will get better. I think the biggest thing that you have to watch out for with Brady is because of how awkward it was, because of how stilted it was, you have to hope that he loosens up, because the fear is that you become like Drew Brees, who did not do very well in this job precisely because he was more so analytical and it didn't have the kind of energy that you have to bring to it too. Obviously, you have to be analytical. You have to be smart.
Yes.
That's what color
And
commentators bring to it a lot of the time. But you have to have that energy as well. That's why people love Tony Romo. That's why people love Greg Olson too. He didn't have that, and there was just a lot of pressure, a lot of comparison to Greg Olson, a lot of pressure with his contract. It's a lot to live up to. It is very first time commenting on an NFL game, no, it's no surprise to me that the guy seemed a little bit stiff. I think it's going to improve. It's just like, what else did we expect? Kind of is my point.
Yeah, and I also want to say a point you made very early on there was just the fact of no matter how much prep you do, no matter how many practice games you call, there's nothing like the real thing. That is insanely true. I think it's funny because everybody I've talked to about this as well will agree with me on this. Your first game is something you will never want to watch again for the rest of your life. You want to make sure, you want to wish that nobody finds that. It's on the internet for me. I will not tell you where it is.
Oh, I want to find it.
It's on the internet. It's ooh, it's bad. It is bad. And it was a lot worse. It was a lot worse.
5-year anniversary. We watched.
It was a lot worse than Brady's. It was a lot worse than Brady's. So that being said, it was not at the national stage though. I will say that. It was not at the biggest level, the highest level of it all. It was very much a lot lower level. So I at least had that in my corner. But I think the thing is, I think you need that. That's always what I've told people. Is you do not know what it's like to call a game until you've done it. There's nothing comparable to it. No matter how much you think you know sports, no matter how much you think you know, like you did prep, you're going to get there, you're going to be put on the mic, and suddenly it's just different. It's a different thing. So I think, I don't know, Tom Brady knows what that's like now. From my own experience of absolutely shit in the bed, you know what it's like, and you know what to expect the next time, and you go back into it, and you do a lot better. The second one's going to be, that is my biggest thing. I think even if Tom Brady is, and I actually think he responded to it really well. I wanted to say, I think Hansen, the guy who does NFL Red Zone, he, a lot of people agreed with him, but he still got sort of backlash online because there was a point where they were talking about a 70-yard field goal in the it was Cowboys and Browns game, obviously. So there was a 70-yard field goal opportunity for Aubrey, and Tom Brady was not getting hyped for it. He was just like, "Oh, they might kick Caleb. They might kick a 70-yarder. You know, that's tough. The kicker's got a really good leg, but I don't know if he can kick a 70-yarder, Caleb. That's really tough." And then Hansen just goes, "Come on, Brady, you gotta get a bit more excited than that. It's a 70-yarder." and people I heard it when I was like watching Red Zone and kind of I recognized it as like didn't think anybody would have the balls to say that, but I kind of brushed it off, and then I looked at Twitter later, and everybody was going nuts over it. And Hansen apologized. Brady then didn't accept his apology, basically saying, "No, it was a joke. I get it. I'm the rookie here. I appreciate it," right? Like it was that type of thing. And I think that's the way you got to do it. You got it because there was no way this was going to go well. Absolutely not. I think we all knew that too. Like there was no way it was going to go his way. Like everything was against Brady for this to go well, and it didn't go well. It sucked. So, but he had his moments as well, though. Like I feel like there was a few things he said where I was like, "Yeah, see, you're getting it. And then the next time he talked, and I was like, "Okay, buddy, let's take a step back. let's go backwards." But I don't know. I think he will be a lot better. That was my, when I said at the beginning that I kind of looped around on it. I think the biggest part I looped around on is I think a lot of people probably watched that and went, "Well, Brady's a terrible broadcaster. It's over." Same as the Drew Brees thing, right? That's not the case. I think I actually think he had a lot going for himself that Brees didn't. I think there was times when Brady, you could tell he was feeling himself a little bit more, like you could tell he was gaining in confidence, but then he'd like mess up or he wouldn't have something to say and there'd be silence and you could he'd lose it a little bit and he'd stop. Like it was just like it was a wave. He was riding the wave a little bit. And I think he's just got to get to the, I don't know. It's so tough because from experience it takes so long to get to the level where you're I've been doing this and it's not that long, but I've been doing this for 3 years now, and I still when I mess up, it's still like a little like, "Oh, that sucks," move on. As you do it more, you get more used to the fuck ups, and you just roll with the punches. I think he's got to learn how to do that quick. You got to learn, because that's the tough thing. He's on blast. You got to do it quick. So it's going to be tough for him. I think the fact that he's immediately getting thrown into the biggest stage, and honestly, I don't think Fox can back down now. I think they've got to keep him in that slot.
Well, they signed him for 10 years. They signed him for 10 years, and he's
But
doing
that's-
the Super Bowl
that's-
this year. So, like, he's kind of got to get better and fast.
Is he?
Which is kind of the
He's
big
doing
issue.
the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're calling the Super Bowl this year, is what I saw. So that's kind of a concern. That's a lot of. If the pressure already wasn't high enough on Brady, maybe fact check me on this. Fact check me on this. Look it up. I'm pretty sure he's doing the Super Bowl this year. It was CBS last year.
Brady.
Pretty sure it's Fox again this year.
You know
but
what?
Isn't that just an insane kind of pressure cooker to put him in at this point?
I'm just
It's
gonna
a
say
lot
this.
of learning to do over
Yes.
18 regular season games.
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer on betting on yourself in a lot of ways. I like to do that a lot. I like to put myself in situations that I don't necessarily think I'm going to win, just to do it, just to see if I can. I'm a believer in that. Brady, you've never, before like 3 days ago, you had never called a game, and you're doing the Super Bowl. Like, what? Who came up with that? That's stupid. Like,
Is he indeed doing the Super Bowl?
I-
Like, were you able to confirm
okay.
that?
is Tom Brady calling the Super Bowl? That is insane. Is he going to be on the desk? Because that's different. Brady.
No, I think I'm pretty sure. Well, they're Fox's top play-by-play team. Like, right? Like they get the top.
Yes, he
teams to
is
do it.
calling the Super Bowl. What
So he's
the
going to be calling
hell?
the Super Bowl this year. Like, so I think you can't even blame Brady for any of this.
No,
So just
God,
to go
no.
back to my earlier point.
Yeah,
It's just a terrible situation by Fox executives, especially when you already had a guy who was really well liked in that spot.
yes.
Really tough position for Brady to be in. If
No,
if
yeah,
this
for
was
sure.
Brady has the same deal but is on the number 2 team this year and then gets promoted or something like that, and Greg Olson does the Super Bowl and then gets put down to the number 2 team, again, that's still shitty, but at least Greg Olson gets another Super Bowl under his belt. And then at that point you flip it to Brady where he's got a full year of experience under his belt. Then he can go to the number 1 team and he doesn't have to call the Super Bowl that year. Like, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what you worry. Because it's not like Tom Brady was a guarantee in any of this. Just because you're a good quarterback doesn't mean you're a good broadcaster. We've seen that
Yeah.
countless times because the skills that it takes to be a quarterback, the knowledge it takes to be a quarterback, well, it certainly helps. It'll help you with the analytical side. Like you said, Simon, it's important to feel like personable, that
Yeah.
you're watching a game on your couch with them, the example you gave. It's hard to imagine Brady. I think you can go either way, but in my head, it's hard to imagine him being that kind of personality. Because you know him as the Bill Belichick Patriots, do your job,
Yeah.
dominate, right, all that kind of stuff. We saw that personality come out a little bit more in the back half of his career, but we still don't really know what that's like. It's not like a laid-back guy. It's not like a Tony Romo. I could not see Brady getting as excitable as Tony Romo over something happening
And-
in a game, right?
You know
It's
the
more
funny
business
thing?
in terms of what I see. That's something he's going to need to learn to develop, and I think that personality is almost, I wouldn't say impossible. I'm sure you can, but that's got to be the hardest thing to develop, way harder than just knowledge of the game.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. Yes. No, that is absolutely the case. Because I think with a lot of people have that knowledge of the game to be able to to talk about it, to be able to tell you about, but the second the mic's on, the second you're in front of a camera, it's no longer, it's different. It's just different. Because you're instantly just in a situation for Brady that he's never been in before, really. I think, and you know what's funny? I was going to say as well, I remember him being on the Manning cast last year, because I remember that happened. I remember watching that, and I thought he did a good job. I thought he was an interesting guest to have on, And a lot of times with the Manning cast, I'm someone who's a fairly big fan of the Manning cast when it was happening. I didn't watch it this last week, but I'm probably this season. I'm sure I'll be watching it. But I remember like being sad that he was leaving it. Right? I thought he did a good job. I think you've got to go into it with the perspective of it's the same thing, and I'm gonna stand with Bill Simmons and what he said on his podcast with that, which I just saw the clip of. I didn't watch the full thing, but basically of just like it's got to feel like you're sitting on the couch with the guy. I think that it's got to start there. Even if you go into this next week, you do it, and everybody's like, he was too casual. Like he was too casual about everything. Like it's not you're not going to be able to figure out where you belong until you go to both sides. That's the advice I've given to a lot of people in the past of the quickest way to figure out your broadcasting style, your commentating style is to go to both sides and figure out what you like, what works. Because you're gonna have to yell, you're gonna have to get excited, and then you're gonna have to call yourself an analytic game before you figure out, okay, I like this, I like that, I like that, I like this, didn't like that. Like there's you got to do both.
And that's a very good point. And I would say, as I'm sure you know, as more of the insider into this, obviously doing this as a job, I'm sure that takes time. Right?
Yeah.
Like as you just described, that takes experimentation, and that takes like a prolonged period of time.
Years.
And yeah,
it's the tough thing.
And that's something that Brady doesn't have.
No, and that's
the tough.
That's tough. He's in a tough spot. Which I mean,
so
you can't blame him. It was millions.
Yeah, I wouldn't turn down that deal.
Oh my god!
But I will say this in terms of the adjustment period that he has in front of you, as a broadcaster, as someone who's been in that chair, not the exact same chair.
Not that chair.
But
as someone who's been in much dirtier, filthier, much more broken down chairs.
Stay back in your chair. Yeah. As someone who's kind of like had to take the time to adjust and learn their style, how many games does Brady have to call before people start being like, he's found his groove?
Oh my god. He's working with the best of the best, which is the biggest thing. He's probably working day in and day out. Like he's figuring it out often. I think this next week is still going to be pretty rough. I think after that, we're going to start to see a bit of improvement. I couldn't tell you when, because it's not comparable. Like, I was doing it by myself. I think I had a weird kind of introduction into the broadcasting industry, where in a lot of ways, I had to figure out everything kind of on my own. Like, I didn't get a lot of advice. I think my biggest asset is the fact that I don't really get embarrassed easily. So I was more than willing to just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. But it took me a while. Even now, it's not like I necessarily feel like I'm good at it. I'm a lot better, and I will continue to get better. But that's how broadcasting works. It's it's weird. I don't like calling it this because it makes it sound super egotistical, but it's an art in a weird way because you just get better as you get older.
It absolutely is.
You just get better as you get older.
Absolutely
There's every year you're going to get a little bit better. And I think that's the tough thing with Brady is he's taking a expert art class with Picasso and needs to paint $1 million painting by the end of the year. So it's a tough spot for him to be in. He's got the best teachers in the world. I'm sure he's going to learn quick. Like, it's Tom Brady. He's got the work ethic. That's not the worry. So I think, I don't know. It's a hard question to answer. I think by the time we get to the Super Bowl, he's going to be a lot better. I still think he'll be worse than any other Fox color guy. That I will say that.
Wow.
No, that shouldn't be a wow. Okay. That makes sense because all of those color people have worked their asses off to get there.
That is true. However, as someone who watches Seahawks games, there's a plenty of Fox color guys that I'm like, yeah, these guys fucking suck.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe I'm wrong. I still think that any of I feel like after the Super Bowl I think the best that Brady can hope to be in 1 year is passable. I think he could be passable by the end of the year. Maybe next, and I think every year he's going to be better. Give it 5 years, Brady might be more than deserving of this spot. But I just think that and Fox knows that. Fox, you got to realize it's not like Fox isn't run by people who work in broadcasting. They knew what they were paying for. They were paying for a guy who's never done it before. It's on them. They should have prepared him better, but at the end of the day, they knew what they were getting. So I think I think they're in for the long haul in a lot of ways. I don't think they're necessarily too mad about the response to this entire thing. But he's got to be working his ass off. That's the biggest thing for me. I think I sent out a tweet actually, when it was happening, and just basically said that. It's just nobody has a good first game. If Brady actually cares about this and isn't just doing it for the money, and he actually wants to be good, he'll work his ass off, and he'll be better next week, and then he'll be better the week after that. And that's you got to just take it a week at a time. It's gonna suck. Brady's not gonna like this job for the first little bit, because it's not for the lighthearted.
I'm not even. But Brady isn't the lighthearted.
No, exactly.
That's
exactly.
It's like if anybody to the positive, to kind of end it on a positive note, if it is exactly as you pointed out, where it's going to be a grind and it's going to take this little improvement week by week, who better to do that than the 199th pick in the draft that ended up being the greatest quarterback of all time? If anybody has that perseverance when the odds are stacked against him, when everybody's kind of doubting him, it's Tom Brady. That's what he has going for him. That's, I think, his biggest asset in all of this.
Yep, and this time around, he was the first overall pick in the broadcasting draft. Signed to a max deal. That's true. Max deal straight out of the draft, having never played the sport. So it's a tough spot. It's a tough spot. But I think that this is the type of industry where work ethic is rewarded. If he works his ass off like he did in football, he'll figure it out. Honestly, I think that this first game is too early to tell whether he's going to be a good broadcaster. Fuck. The end of the season is going to be too early to tell. I think we're going to be able to see levels of what he ends up being. But if he works his ass off on it, works at his craft, he'll be good. He'll figure it out. It's just the little things, right? It's learning how to fill the gaps. It's learning how to work with. I mean, a big part of it is I actually didn't think he worked very well with Burkhardt. Truthfully, I think Burkhardt sounded really, really good, but I think that Brady was just so awkward that a lot of times it was Burkhardt going, "So what do you think about that one, Tom?" It was he was very much, he was throwing Brady in the deep end, and Brady was barely swimming in a lot of moments. So I think, I don't know. I think it's definitely going to take some time. The more you work with somebody like that, the first game you work with anybody, you're still figuring it out. I think the second game is going to go a lot better. I said that earlier. I still stand by that. I think it will go better. I think that now a big part of it as well, as somebody who has worked with, I work with a lot of students. I've worked with a lot of inexperienced color people. After that first game, you know what to expect and you know what to bring for the next game. I think we're going to hear Burkhardt filling a lot of those gaps and, in a way, making Brady sound better because he knows what to expect. I think that'd be my prediction for this next week. Predicting further down the road when he's going to be good enough that fans are going to be happy with it, it's impossible to tell. You never know. There's no real example of this to this level, I guess, happening.
Yeah. It's unprecedented, and I mean, it'll be certainly very interesting to see how it plays out for the rest of the season. Who knows? I mean, I think my biggest worry if I'm Fox, honestly, is just that you hope Greg Olsen doesn't get poached. But
yeah.
He probably will be.
Oh, he will be. The vultures are circling. Holy. Because, when you fuck up that hard, they're going to be around. And I think Yeah, no, Greg Olson's probably not gonna. The funny thing is, I can't even remember if I heard him last year or even this year on the games that I was listening to. Like, I don't actually feel like I've listened to him. But from the way everybody talks about him, it's insane to me that Tom Brady's in this top spot all year. So I don't know.
It is.
Like, it's pretty insane, and it makes me really sad, honestly, as somebody in the like I know Greg Olson. He's in the sense of like he didn't necessarily have to work for it in the same way that a lot of people have. He still had to work for it, but when you started at the NFL level, that is you skipped the line by a good 25 years. Is all I'm saying. Right?
Yeah.
In that sense,
I do think it's a little bit different. I do think it's a little bit different for color commentators on the NFL
Yes.
specifically because it is a
And
lot of
NHL.
former players, mostly former players.
Yeah.
So yes, you skipped the line a little bit, but even in the point of Greg Olson, and Brady did a little bit of this. I believe he did call the UFL championship for Fox, but Greg Olson, the first time I heard Greg Olson call a game was in the original USFL when they were bringing that back. He put his time in there. He would, I believe, call games there weekly. So he put in his time. He put in a full season with that upstart league with maybe
And
more
that's
inexperienced
how you gotta
crews. So even then, yeah, that
I-
he put in the time and I think developed that craft. Even though I think he had a big talent for it initially, I remember thinking even in those first couple of games, he did sound pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is just unfortunate that this comes at the cost of a great color commentator.
Yep, and I think the biggest thing you can hope for with Brady, has got to be just that he doesn't learn. I think the biggest mistake that he could possibly make is learning how to rely on Burkhardt, like because I think there's a difference between learning how to properly become a good color commentator and how to work, sound like a good color commentator with the person you're on the desk with, if that makes sense. Like, I think Burkhardt is going to learn how to make Tom Brady sound good, and in a weird way, Brady's going to find a way to, like, kind of make everything sound good, and then we're all just going to be... I hope that's not where we land, is kind of what I'm trying to say. Because I feel like that's the floor. From hearing Burkhardt, he sounded very, very good. I think he's good enough that he's going to be good enough to mask Brady, now that he knows what to expect. This next week, he's going to try and mask Brady's inexperience. I think I just hope that Brady doesn't get used to it, is kind of what I'm trying to say. I hope that he still works on it. Because, like you pointed out, Greg Olson maybe didn't have the same chance to do that in the USFL when he was starting up. I still think if you're calling USFL, you're still a great-ass play-by-play guy, was what I was going to say as well, because that's still high-level football. But I think it's not NFL level. It's not NFL level. There's still a difference, right? So... I don't know. We've talked about this for a while, and I kind of knew we would because I wanted to talk about this. This is something that was very interesting to me. But yeah, it should be good. Hopefully Brady takes the right route on it. It already seems like he has. He's taken his bumps. Everybody has to. It's the same as anything else. So yeah, I don't know. It's the same as any other job. You got to learn by doing the job. It's a lot harder when you're doing it in front of a camera and a microphone to millions of people. Yeah.